We have all felt the weight of waiting. You work, you plan, you stare at a door that refuses to budge. Then, in a moment you least expect, it swings wide open. Have you ever noticed this strange rhythm in your own life? It feels like luck, or perhaps a random twist of fate. But there is a consistency to these moments that suggests something else is happening. A hidden measurement is taking place behind the scenes of your daily experience. It is a silent calculation between what you want and what you are actually prepared to handle. This explains why certain things remain out of reach, no matter how hard you pull. There is a precise mechanism that governs the arrival of every event. You are not waiting for time. You are waiting for a version of yourself that hasn't arrived yet. We often treat life like a marathon where the fastest runner wins. We push, we strive, we attempt to manufacture outcomes through sheer force of will. But you have likely experienced days where every green light turns red and every conversation feels like an uphill battle. Then there are the other moments, those rare windows where everything clicks into place without effort. An old friend calls just as you think of them. An answer arrives the moment you stop looking. Something strange happens in moments like these. It is as if the universe suddenly remembers your name. Most of us dismiss these events as simple coincidences. We overlook a vital signal because we are too focused on the struggle.
But this pattern appears more often than we realize. Why does the flow vanish just as quickly as it arrives? This raises an interesting question about the nature of our reality. Perhaps the timing of your life is not a series of random events, but a sophisticated feedback loop. Watch closely, because the mechanism behind this is far simpler than most people imagine. Consider the periods in your life when everything seems to go right. You find the perfect parking spot. You meet the exact person you need. You feel a strange sense of momentum that carries you forward. We usually label this a good week and leave it at that. But then the pattern shifts. Suddenly, the momentum vanishes. You face small delays. Projects stall. You find yourself pushing against an invisible wall. Have you ever noticed how quickly the flow can disappear? Most people misinterpret this cycle as simple coincidence or bad luck. They see these shifts as external events happening to them, but the repetition suggests something deeper is at play. This is the strange consistency many people notice once they stop looking at the events and start looking at the timing. You might see the same rhythm appearing in your career, your relationships, and even your creative ideas. The pattern becomes difficult to ignore. It is not that reality is being inconsistent. It is that reality is providing a constant, precise response to a signal you are unknowingly sending. This is where the pattern becomes clear.
This is where the experience begins to make sense. We have been taught that timing is a matter of luck, but the reality is that timing is a matter of frequency. Think of your internal state as a specific coordinate. The events you desire also have a coordinate. When those 2 points align, the experience happens. This means that the things you are waiting for are not being withheld by a capricious universe. They are simply waiting for you to match the resonance of their arrival. This reveals something important about how reality works. We often think of excitement as just a fleeting emotion or a byproduct of good news. In truth, that feeling is a sophisticated navigation signal. It is a biological indicator telling you that you are currently in alignment with your next step. The teaching is simpler than most people usually expect. You do not need to hunt for opportunities or force doors to open. You only need to follow the signal of your highest excitement. When you do, you are essentially tuning your internal dial to the exact station where your desired outcome is already playing. Suddenly, the pattern becomes easier to understand. This is the hidden rule behind the experience. Reality does not happen to you, it happens through you, functioning like a highly sophisticated navigation system. Think of your highest excitement as the GPS signal. When you follow that signal, you are essentially telling the system that you are ready for the next coordinate.
This explains why the pattern behaves this way. When you are in alignment, the path is clear because you have tuned your frequency to a version of reality where those opportunities already exist. It is similar to a radio. If you want to hear a specific song, you must tune the dial to the exact frequency. You don't blame the radio for being silent if you are on the wrong station. You simply adjust the dial. Why does the flow disappear the moment we ignore the signal? Because ignoring your excitement is the mechanical equivalent of switching to a channel where those coincidences don't play. This mechanism has been operating in your life the entire time, even in the smallest moments. When you feel friction or resistance, it is not a punishment. It is simply the system providing feedback that you have drifted off course. Suddenly, the pattern makes sense. The delay you experience is not time passing. It is the time it takes for you to adjust your internal frequency to match the destination you've chosen. If the mechanism is so simple, why do we struggle to follow it? The difficulty does not come from the world around you, but from a deeply ingrained internal resistance. This is the moment the inner voice begins to argue. We have been conditioned to believe that life must be difficult to be meaningful. We equate struggle with worth and caution with intelligence. Because of this, most people mistake their internal obstacles for wisdom or responsibility.
When a spark of excitement appears, the mind immediately intervenes with a list of practical reasons to ignore it. We tell ourselves it isn't the right time, or that we need more certainty before moving. This is where many of us lose the signal. We trade the momentum of alignment for the illusion of safety. But how many times has this caution actually silenced a breakthrough? When you ignore the signal, you aren't being realistic. You are simply choosing a path of higher friction. Suddenly, the excitement is replaced by a heavy sense of obligation, and the flow you were chasing vanishes. I'm curious if you've ever felt this signal and ignored it because it didn't seem practical in the moment. If you've experienced moments like this, share it in the comments. Despite the weight of old conditioning, there is a simple method to begin shifting your alignment immediately. This is how the signal becomes action. The formula is a living experiment, and it begins by noticing the options currently available to you. Look at your day. Among all the choices you have right now, which one contains even a tiny spark of excitement? It doesn't have to be a major life change. It might be as simple as reading a specific book or taking a different route home. Act on that excitement to the best of your ability and follow it as far as it naturally goes until you can take it no further. This is where the navigation begins. The key is to do this with curiosity rather than pressure.
Most people fail because they try to force a specific result, but the mechanism works best when you release your attachment to the outcome. By following the excitement, you are staying in the frequency of alignment. Once that action is complete, look for the next signal and repeat. This is how the shift in your timeline actually starts. If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing for more explorations of how consciousness and reality interact. The signal usually appears in small moments. It rarely announces itself with a dramatic life change or a booming voice. Instead, it feels like a quiet curiosity about a person you haven't spoken to in months, or a sudden impulse to visit a bookstore you usually drive past. This is often how the shift begins. Imagine a morning where you feel a slight pull to work from a different cafe. Instead of dismissing it as an impractical whim, you follow that spark of interest. While there, you happen to sit next to someone who mentions the exact solution to a problem you've been struggling with for weeks. These are the moments we often dismiss as simple coincidences. But in reality, Your small decision shifted you into a version of the day where that conversation was already happening. How many times has a small decision changed the direction of your day without you realizing it? You have likely already experienced dozens of these moments, but you may have overlooked their significance. When you start treating these impulses as coordinates rather than distractions, you begin to see the mechanism in action. The chain reaction starts with the smallest yes. This suggests something remarkable about the nature of experience. We often view reality as a single, rigid track that we must navigate with effort. But the mechanism we have explored points toward a much more fluid truth. It suggests that the version of life you seek, where your goals are met and your timing is perfect, already exists as a potential reality. You are not building that reality from scratch. You are simply tuning yourself to the frequency where it is already occurring. This changes the way we understand those moments of waiting. The delay is not a barrier. It is a recalibration. When you follow your excitement, you aren't just making a better choice for your day. You are choosing which version of yourself to embody. This reveals a deeper meaning behind the pattern of your life. It implies that you are a participant in a vast, interactive field that responds to your internal state with mathematical precision. Could these signals be guiding us toward versions of ourselves we have not yet explored? You may already be standing at the threshold of this realization. The coincidences and the timing you've noticed are not accidents. They are the echoes of a reality that is waiting for you to simply align with it. Perhaps the signal has been there all along, hiding in the quiet corners of your day.
The timing of your life is not a mystery to be solved, but a rhythm to be felt. As you move forward, you may begin to notice patterns in daily events that you previously ignored. The shift in your reality begins simply by noticing these subtle indicators of alignment. How many of these signals have appeared quietly in your life today? You don't need to force the next door to open. You only need to remain aware of the one that is already beginning to unlock. The journey of following your excitement is an ongoing conversation between your consciousness and the world around you. If you are curious about the deeper mechanics behind this signal, the exploration appearing on screen dives into the hidden layers of how your beliefs shape these exact moments. Following that path reveals what happens when you consistently align with the version of yourself you've always sensed was possible.